Early on, BET received quite a bit of criticism because we were primarily a music video channel. And when we started, music videos were Lionel Richie and Aretha Franklin and Earth, Wind and Fire. Then all of a sudden, something called hip hop came along, and the nature of music videos changed. And you know, artists were criticized for lyrics that were misogynistic and you know, hateful in some way. And at that point, 60% of our programming was music videos. So when I took over as CEO about 11 years ago, I made a promise to do more original programming. And that was about the time other cable networks were getting into more original programming. And we actually, my leadership team and I kind of sat down for 18 months and said, what do we want to stand for? What does BET mean? We can no longer say we're the only Black network, that we were starting to have competitors. But we had to come up with our brand promise and our set of values. And the three pillars of our value promise was to respect, reflect, and elevate our audience. And if programming didn't meet at least two of those three pillars, then we shouldn't do it. So that's when we really started getting into more original programming, like The Game and Being Mary Jane and The Quad. And you know, we didn't want to label programming as positive or negative, because I think that can be misleading. But what we said is we wanted to have realistic images. And if someone in a series has a drug problem, let's try to find a resolution for them. Let's not sugarcoat it and pretend like it doesn't exist. Let's show a resolution. Let's you know, have a storyline that really inspires people and motivates them. So I think our audience's view as to who we are has really changed, especially in the past 5 or 6 years, and I'm really proud of that. When we did this brand analysis, I hired a guy named Stan Slapp, who I met at Microsoft. Microsoft has a CEO conference every year, and Stan did a seminar on brands, and he was a consultant for Microsoft and did a lot of brand work for them. And I went to his seminar, and I was so impressed with him. I said, please come help us. And so I hired him, and he actually did this program, which, as I said, took 18 months. And as he described it, we started in hell, and hopefully we ended up in heaven by the end of the 18 months. And you'll be happy to know, in heaven there's lots of chocolate, and it's a really nice conference room. And but hell was hard to take, and hell consisted of us interviewing our employees, interviewing our viewers, talking to our cable operators, our advertisers, and really getting their viewpoint of what we were doing and where we were. And the first problem we found is our employees were not proud of what we were doing. You know, they were getting criticism from their families and friends. As, why does BET show these music videos, and why don't you do more about this? And at a particular time, I had protesters outside my house in Washington. This minister in Only, Maryland decided he didn't like hip hop music, and he decided the way to change it was to bus his congregation to my house every Saturday afternoon. And you know, they had bullhorns, and they were, we are not bitches, we are not whores. You know, it was not the kind of thing you want in your neighborhood on Saturday afternoon when you're usually trying to take a nap. And so that got us a lot of attention. And you know, I always said, why didn't he go to Jay-Z's house or Ludacris's house or Kanye's house? But I guess they lived too far away, so he just he decided that my house was a nice place to come. So that was in the midst of what we were going through, and it took a lot to get us to heaven, and heaven was really a place where we could do the kind of original programming we wanted to. He took all constraints off of our resources. Of course, that doesn't exist in the day-to-day world, but we could say, okay, what could we do if we had unlimited resources? You know, and I remember him saying that Apple was a brand that we should try to emulate, because if Apple was ever attacked in the media or in the news, the users of Apple products would come to their defense quicker than anyone else. Apple never had to defend itself. The people who had Apple products, and this was years ago, so it wasn't everyone at that point, but people who used iPhones or iPads were such true believers in Apple that they would, you know, get together and defend Apple. And I say that to say, we just had a recent incident with a show we have called The Quad. And The Quad is about a HBCU campus. And it's a scripted show, it's fiction. And it's about a female president of a university, and she's a little messy. She has some issues in her life, if any of you have watched it. And the band leader is not a great person. And so there are good people and bad people, like are in any drama. But we were, one of the HBCU presidents wrote a letter and said, you know, he didn't approve of it, of the show, and he thought we were giving off negative images of HBCUs. And I talked to him, assured him that that wasn't what was going on, that, you know, it was just where it was located. And that, you know, we all were supportive of HBCUs. But anyway, long story short, the great thing was that our viewers came to our support and said, look, this is a fiction. We all realize it's fiction. It's a great show. It's dealing with important issues like drugs on campus and sexual harassment and abuse on campus. And, you know, we're looking for resolution in the show. But the part that really resonated with me and made me feel good, I called my head of marketing and PR, and I was like, I think we've gotten to heaven. You know, I think for the first time, we don't have to defend ourselves. People are coming to our defense, and our viewers are coming to our defense. And I think that was recognition by our audience that we have been doing good work. You know, everything from the Love and Happiness concert we did for President and Mrs. Obama, or news specials we do, or, you know, the scripted shows we do, or so. It took a while, and it took a lot of work and a lot of new shows, and you can't really tell people what you're going to do. You have to show them. But I think we're at the point now where our audience really supports us and believes in what we're trying to do.